video is about stative verbs. Stative verbs are also called non-action verbs, and this is a category of verbs in English that you will hear about, especially when you are talking about verb tenses. And the reason is because stative verbs, which are verbs that generally talk about the condition or state of something, are generally not used in the progressive tense. So you do not want to use be plus ing for the stative verbs. That means that you are more limited with stative verbs. You can use the simple forms. That's simple present, simple past, simple future, present perfect, past perfect, future perfect. But not the progressive forms. So you can see some different lists I have up here, how sometimes the stative verbs are divided, so you get the idea of the type of verbs we're talking about. We have verbs of sense, thought, feeling, and relationships. Now, if it were just a matter of learning these verbs and always remembering to do what? To not use them in the progressive form, that wouldn't be so hard. But unfortunately, it's a little bit more difficult than that. I've got a few items over here that we need to talk about. The first thing is many verbs have stative meanings and active meanings. Like many words in English, some of these verbs have a variety of definitions, a variety of meanings. If you look in the dictionary, you will see a number of different meanings. So some of these verbs have a stative meaning, but they also have an active meaning. They're like two different verbs that have the same name. So you have to be careful. Why do you have to be careful to know the difference? Because, as I mentioned, you do not use the progressive or the continuous forms for the stative meanings. If the verb is an active meaning, you can use any verb tense that you want if it's appropriate for the time. But if it's a stative meaning, you are more limited. So we're going to take a look because I have marked a red mark next to the verbs that have common stative and active meanings. Let's look at the verbs of sense. See, look, appear, resemble, seem, hear, sound, feel, smell, taste, and be. Be is not really a sense, but it is a stative verb, so I've just included it there. So let's take see. We have a stative meaning of see. I see the camera. You see me. That is a stative meaning. You also have an active meaning. The active meaning is used for appointments with a professional, like I am seeing a lawyer to talk about my will, or dating. John is seeing Mary. Did you know that? So that is the active meaning. Those uses of the verb, you can use any verb tense you want. If you're using the verb see with your eyes, you can only use the simple forms of the verb. That's the basic idea here. Look, the stative meaning is the same as the verb appear. That looks good. And I put an example down here of how you would use it in the stative meaning. It looks good. It appears good. She looks tired. That cake looks delicious. Those are, cannot say she is looking tired. it doesn't work. You need to say she looks tired. But if you're using the active meaning, which is this, I am looking around the room, that's the active meaning. I am free to use the progressive form if I want to. Okay? Up here, like I said, the stative meaning is how something is perceived. You look nice. She looks tired. It appears good. She appears tired. There's also an active meaning that's used in theater. This person is appearing on Broadway. That's the active meaning used in theatrical terms. Feel. What am I doing right now? I am feeling my blouse. Is that stative or active? It's action. That's active. You can use the progressive form. But if you're talking about feel, meaning my blouse feels nice, it feels good, that is the stative meaning. That's the condition or the state of it. You do not use the progressive. You don't say it is feeling good. You say it feels good. Smell. I am smelling the air. That is the active meaning. The air smells good. That is the stative meaning. That's the condition of the air. You can't say the air is smelling good. You need to say the air smells good. You are limited to the simple forms for that meaning. Taste, if I have a piece of cheese and I am tasting the cheese, that's active. The cheese not is tasting, the cheese tastes good. You need to use the simple form because it is a stative meaning. Be is almost always used as a stative verb, but you can use it as an active verb if you're talking about a temporary and usually unusual behavior. Usually, this child is very well behaved, but today he is being very disobedient. That's talking about a temporary, unusual behavior. That's the only time really that we use that as an active verb, is being. Otherwise, you don't use it in the progressive, right? Okay. So, thought. Let's take a look at these. Understand, know, believe, doubt, feel, think, consider, realize, recognize, imagine, suppose, remember, intend, agree, and disagree. So, a few of these have red dots. Remember, if it doesn't have a red dot, you just always use it as a stative verb. No progressive is possible. But these three, feel, think, and consider, can all be used to talk about your opinion about something. And when you talk about your opinion, that is the stative meaning. That's when you need to use the simple form of the verb. I feel that a trip to Tokyo is too expensive. I think that a trip to Tokyo is too expensive. I consider, this is a little different grammar, I consider a trip to Tokyo to be too expensive. That's talking about my opinion. That is using a simple form. I think, I feel, I consider, simple present. You don't say, I am feeling that a trip to Tokyo is too expensive. No progressive for that. The active possibilities for feel, I am feeling or I am not feeling very good. That would be the active meaning for your body or your emotions. I am thinking about grammar right now. That's the active meaning. That's not my opinion. It's the action in my head. And consider, I am considering a trip this summer. Not my opinion, it's my plan. That is the active. meaning. Realize is usually a stative verb. It can be active if you talk about making something real. She is realizing her dream. You can use that in the progressive because that is the active sense of the verb. The passive sense is more, the stative sense is the more common one. I realize that, actually we can say this, I realize that a trip to Tokyo is too expensive. I realize that English grammar is difficult. That's the stative meaning. Imagine. Imagine can be used as a stative verb also to talk about your opinion, right? Same thing. I imagine that a trip to Tokyo is too expensive. A little bit more like a guess, but similar idea. Right now, what am I doing? I am imagining a world where everybody understood stative verbs. That's the active meaning, okay? All right, let's look at feelings. Like, dislike, love, hate, mind, prefer, want, appreciate, and need. No red dots. That means that all of these verbs are not, they do not have an active meaning. They are just used as stative verbs. One thing to note is the verb mind. Mind is almost always used in the negative, I don't mind, or as a question. Do you mind? Would you mind? Okay. Relationships, possession, own, have, possess, belong to, owe, deserve, contain, include, and consist of. Only one red dot, the verb have. If you're talking about possession, that is a stative verb. I have one brother. Not I am having one brother, but I have one brother. The verb have can also be used in idioms that talk about an experience. Are you having a good day? That's not possession. That's experience. And if you're using it in that meaning, in that sense, then that's an active verb. You can use any verb tense you want. You can use the progressive. Are you having a good day? Okay, measurement, weigh, cost, equal, measure, fit. Only two here that are typically used, both active and stative. Weigh, if I go to the grocery store, put some apples in a bag and put it on the scale, I am weighing the apples. That's the active meaning. The apples weigh 2 pounds. That's the stative meaning. You can't say the apples are weighing 2 pounds. The apples weigh 2 pounds. So I give an example down here. The table weighs 10 pounds. That's the stative meaning. Same with measure. The table measures 2 feet by 5 feet. That's the stative meaning. I am measuring the table. That's the active meaning. Depend on, rely on, require, result in, and mean are also usually stative verbs, but these two can also be active. Depend on and rely on. If you're talking about you, especially as a person, trusting another person, I am depending on you to help me. That's the active meaning. The stative meaning, well, we use that a lot with depend. Are you coming to the party tonight? Well, I don't know. It depends on how I feel. That's the stative meaning of depend. Rely on, this machine relies on solar power. That's the stative meaning, talking about the state or the condition. All right, so we've basically talked about these first two ideas. The third, there are exceptions. Sometimes the progressive is used to indicate an unstable or changing state. Let's take an example with the verb intend. There's no red dot here. The idea is you should only use this as a stative verb, which means no progressive, right? If you've been listening, you should be nodding your head. But it is possible to have exceptions. So if you want to communicate the idea that something is unstable or changing, you could say, she is intending to visit her friends this summer. And it communicates the idea that it's an unstable plan. It might change. If you say she intends to visit her friends this summer, it's almost the same, but just a little bit more definite. She intends to blah, blah, blah. She is intending to, could change maybe. So you just have to keep in mind, you might hear some of these used in the progressive. Don't panic. It's okay. Last thing, make sure you remember the difference between a progressive verb and just a present participle. The present participle is requiring, relying, resulting. The progressive verb needs the be verb, is relying, are requiring, am depending. The progressive verb has be plus the past participle. The present participle. The present participle can also be used as a gerund, or it can be used as a shortened clause. So I give an example up here. If I say, I'm going to send you a writing kit, and this kit includes 4 markers and a rag. This kit includes, that's a stative verb, include, got right here, it's a stative verb, no progressive. You don't say this kit is including. But let's look at this one. I will send you a writing kit, including 4 markers and a rag. Is this a progressive verb? No, it's a present participle. That is, it's a reduced adjective clause. It's a participial phrase. It's not a progressive verb. Remember the difference between those. This is fine. There's no problem with this. It's not a progressive verb. There's no be verb. Okay, so I hope that you remember all of these things the next time you use one of these verbs.